Hi, I'm Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do the chainless turning double crochet, or as I normally call it, a standing double crochet. This technique allows you to make rows of double crochet that have nice straight edges and leave no gaps in your rows. Typically when you're taught to double crochet, you're told to make a chain 3 and then work a double crochet into the first stitch. And this technique forces the chain 3 to sort of bubble out on the edge and leave these little gaps, because the double crochet that you make into the first stitch needs to take up that space. And so these are pushed off to the edges. This gives a nice solid piece, but you are left with these sort of bubbly edges. For the most part, this is fine if you work a border onto your project for something like a dishcloth or a baby blanket. This is really okay. But for something like a scarf, you might want straighter edges because you're probably not going to work a border all the way around the edge of a scarf. One of the other things that you can do to try and combat this problem is, instead of chaining 3, you can chain 2. This means that the edges don't bubble out quite as much. They still do a little bit. And when you block the project, you can pull just a little bit and those sort of straighten out and squish the stitches in. And they do get a little bit straighter, but it's still not perfect. You can see if I have the chain 3 one, I have to stretch it really far to get those to go straight. And the chain 2, I only have to stretch a little bit. So just a little bit of blocking can kind of solve this problem if you only chain 2 on your edges. I've also seen people suggest that you chain 3 and then don't work a stitch into the first stitch from the last row. This solves the bubbling on the edge problem, but leaves a gap where the chain 3 doesn't really fully fill the space. So you get nice straight edges without having to block or stretch or anything like that, but you have holes along here. This technique works okay for scarves, but if you were to work a border into this, these holes become much more pronounced. That means that the chainless double crochet or the standing double crochet is really your best option if you're going to work a border, or if you want to leave it borderless and still have straight edges. You can see here that it's very difficult to tell which is the first stitch in the row and which is the last stitch in the row. The rows look pretty even and very solid, and overall I think it's the best of the techniques, though it is a little bit tricky to get the hang of. I'm going to walk you through it, and then it'll just take a little bit of practice, and I think you'll want to replace this technique in all of the patterns that you work with double crochet. To get us started, I've already worked a row of double crochet and I'm ready to turn my row. Now normally you would work a chain 3 and then turn the project and work into the first stitch. But for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a loop about the height of a double crochet. So here's my height of my double crochet, and I'm going to pull up a loop about the same height. I'm going to put my index finger of the hand that holds the hook on the loop, turn the project towards me, and that puts just a little bit of twist into this loop. And now I'm going to keep my index finger on the loop, drop my hook down around the back side, yarn over, pull that loop around to the front, and so now I have sort of a twisty bit and 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and draw that through the 2 loops. And this gives me sort of a fake double crochet that's going to start my row off. It'll take up the space that a double crochet would, and not too much space where you would have problems if you worked a chain 3 and a double crochet. So this is sort of an in-between fix for the beginning of the row, and I think it makes really a nice stitch at the beginning here. So I'm going to pull that out and show you one more time. You pull up a loop the size of a double crochet, put your index finger on the loop, turn your project towards yourself, drop your hook behind the loop, yarn over and pull it around the back side, yarn over and draw through both loops. And that makes your chainless turning double crochet or your standing double crochet stitch. And then you just proceed to work the rest of the row in regular double crochets. And again, you can see I did not work anything into the top of this stitch because this chainless double crochet is taking that space almost perfectly. All right, I've worked one complete row of double crochets, and then I worked most of the way back, and I'm just about to work into that first chainless double crochet that I made at the beginning of this row. And so I'm going to work my normal double crochet into the second to last stitch. And then when I go to work into the chainless double crochet, they're really nice because they have just normal V shape, and you don't have to work into chains or anything like that. So I'm just going to yarn over and insert my hook under here. And sometimes they can be just a little bit tighter than the normal top of a stitch, depending on how you made your stitch. But I'm just going to work a normal double crochet into here. And they work really well because you don't have to work into chains or anything, that you can just work a normal stitch and keep going. And then when you're ready to turn your row, you just drop your loop and turn and make your chainless double crochet. And that's all there is to this technique. Getting used to making the turn and flipping your hook behind it can be a little bit tricky, but I promise you it's worth it over time. I really like the way that these stitches work into a project, and you can replace a chainless stitch in pretty much every pattern that you work instead of working chain threes, even if the pattern doesn't tell you that you can. I hope this video helped you learn the chainless double crochet. If you have any questions about this technique, leave those in the comments section below. If you're having any trouble with other crochet techniques, leave that in the comments too, and I'll see what I can do to help you out. If you like this video, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.